Hey, this is Evan Mark Katz, dating and relationship coach for smart, strong, successful women, your personal trainer for love. Welcome back to the Love You podcast, where you can learn everything there is to know about dating, relationships, sex, and men from a man's point of view. Uh, it's easy for me to get on the mic and rant. I like to think I'm adept at it, just talking for 15 minutes about anything that's on my mind. But candidly, I'm always more interested in talking to interesting people. Today, I've got a really, really interesting person. Uh, he's not my discovery. You may already know who he is, but I recently found him on Instagram. Uh, and let me read you his professional bio because I think it exceeds that of mine. Mo Gawdat is the former chief business officer at Google, author, podcast host, and founder of the 1 billion happy movement. Driven by a passion for solving humanity's biggest challenges, Mo has co-founded, not confounded, more than 20 companies and mentored countless startups. After the loss of his son Ali, he developed the happiness model at the heart of his best-selling book, Solve for Happy, in 2017, sparking his global mission to make 1 billion people happy. He went on to launch Slow Mo, a podcast with Mo Gawdat, now a leading mental health podcast. His book, Scary Smart, predicted the rise of AI, establishing him as one of the world's most respected AI experts. He followed that with That Little Voice in Your Head, Unstressable and Alive, all international bestsellers. In 2025, Mo also introduced Emma.love, an ambitious AI project to help people find and sustain genuine love. You could see why I brought him here. Mo, thank you for joining me. You're in Dubai, yes?
I am in Dubai, and I am really grateful that you invited me, Evan. I think the topic comes together really nicely, and maybe I can learn from you as much as I can share with you today.
Well, I promise you I will be asking more questions than I will be doing the talking because I
We
think you have some
we will see
interesting
about
things to
that.
say. Well,
Okay.
but sincerely, you come at this from a very, very different angle than I
I
do,
do. Yeah.
which is what's
Yeah.
exciting to me to find whatever that intersection is. So you've spoken about how our relationship with technology shapes the quality of our lives, and I see this every day. My job has changed over the years, not because people have changed so much, but because when I
Yeah.
started doing this, it was Match.com and 200-word essays and emails back and
Yeah.
forth, something resembling a courtship process. As we've moved to
Hmm.
swiping, texting, it's degraded the quality of our interactions, and everybody sort of feels a little bit disposable. This is going to have downstream effects for people. And so then we get into loneliness, the fear of commitment, all the things that inspires your work. So I want to explore with you
Hmm.
how AI and Emma might change the story about love and connection. So if we're more connected than ever because we have all the world's knowledge in our pockets at all time, we have push notifications, right? How do we have all this connection and so much loneliness?
So this is truly, the biggest challenge on our planet today. I'll tell you openly, and it's puzzling because as humans, we want love the same way we wanted love 20 years ago, right? There's nothing has changed. The only thing that has really changed is the landscape that we navigate to get to that wonderful connection, and the supply demand curve, if you want, in a very interesting way. uh, as you so beautifully articulated it, in my generation and yours, when you found someone that you really, really connected with, you courted them. There was courtesy, there was effort, there was interest, and accordingly, there was a willingness to listen and change. There was a process that was slow enough to uncover the complexity of love and relationships. And I think most people don't realize, and I know when I say that, some people laugh about it, but I'm an engineer at the end of the day. Most people don't realize that uh, love is an extremely complex mathematical problem. In reality, it is not falling in love that's the problem. It's finding the person that's worthy of that love that is incredibly mathematically intensive, incredibly empathy intensive, but also intelligence intensive. And I think what happened in our world today is that we have shifted um, the landscape from the benefit of the lovers to the benefit of the providers. So we've created a world where almost everyone wants to keep you single, whether that's your dating app, pretending to be your supporter in this very complex process of finding love, or whether it is your dating spot, the place that you're going to go to. With, of course, all due respect to you, Evan, but there is a million influencers on the internet
Mhm.
that purpose to be dating coaches,
Sure.
who in a very interesting way, are not your coach if you're not dating. So they want you to continue to date in a very interesting way, right? And you can basically say that we are in a system that's geared to keep us lost. Okay, every message we get in a rom-com, every message we get, in a 60 seconds reel, every message that our friends will tell us is what we need, is just it's almost we're failing by design. And it's quite interesting because you brought the time when you started to do this, and I looked, to understand still exists in other cultures and in other nations around the world. So the catastrophe of love and relationships in the West is not the case in other places, right? And most of us forget about that. And it's actually quite eye-opening to recognize the differences. I mean, take any of the stats. Huh? In the West, stats will say one of every three people have never experienced a committed relationship, right? The average committed relationship duration is now dropped to around 2.3 to 3.5 years, right? In India, it's 12 to 15 years, right? You take the family stats. 20 to 30% of women above 40 today are childless, whether by choice or not. 25% of kids are raised by a single parent, right? That's not the case at all. Again, I'm using India as one example, but many, many, many Eastern examples exist. In India, children will live with their parents most of their life, on average, right? The massive, ridiculous stat is body count, right? And body count in the West ranges. Remember, body count is a number that is affected by how honest and truthful people are. For example, the French say that their body count is 8, and would you believe that about the French on average? But basically, it ranges from 10 to 15 in the West. It's just 3 in India. Okay. And of course, body count is a very significant number, because if you do the math, even though one of every two marriages ends in divorce in the West, right? Most relationships don't get to marriage because simply, if you take the number 15, that basically means that 96.7% of all relationships end. So think about that, huh? So one of 15 lasts, and we don't know if it's going to last or not, because half of those are going to break up in a divorce, right? And when you think about that, do you know the number in India? 1 in 100 marriages ends. 99 marriages are lifetime marriages, right? Now, the difference is quite interesting, and it's very eye-opening, because when you go to the big cities of India, right? When you go to the cosmopolitan, urban places where people follow the same Western approach to love and relationships, they watch the same rom-coms, they follow the same, habits or interests, if you want, they drop to similar numbers. It's one in three marriages in big cities in India will end, and the trend is approaching one in two, like the West, right? So you have those two environments. One environment that completely works, okay, very similar to when you started to coach on dating, and another environment that completely fails and is causing a lot of pain for a lot of people. And we're moving further and further and further down that path. So there is a way to make it work. It's just that we don't really give ourselves the time to think about why it's breaking.
Oh man, I got so much to say. Thank you for that. That
Say,
was that was a soliloquy, and I want to be a really good host. I also want to push back on a couple things if I'm allowed to push back on a couple things.
go for it.
All right.
Sure.
So, let's look at this as this larger holistic thing. There's a wonderful book that I read about 15 years ago by Reva Seth called First Comes Marriage. Are you familiar with it?
Mhm, mhm,
It's
mhm.
the virtues of Indian arranged marriage,
Yeah,
right? And there are tons of virtues to Indian arranged marriage. And that is one end of the spectrum. And the other one is the one that you're talking about here today, which is infinite choice, where the other one is
correct.
saying, hey, we're making the choice for you. You guys, you kids will figure it out. Stay together. Um, and I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. And
100%.
and so even with your statistics, again, you and I actually want the same things and we're on the same team. My statistics are a little different than your statistics in that
Go for it. Yeah.
uh, divorce, and again, if I read The Atlantic, it's not a perfect news source, but that's the one I go to. Divorce was actually at its high in around like 1980. It's been going down since. If you're college educated over 30, your divorce rate's closer to 20% rather than 50%. And overall, it's closer to 40 than 50. It may not make a difference, but I think we could scare people into thinking that every marriage is bad. As a guy with a high body count, I am really, really grateful I had the experiences to know what didn't work for me, to go through those experiences. I would have loved to have figured it out when I was younger. Genuinely would love to have figured it out, but I wasn't capable of figuring it out until I made a bunch of mistakes myself. So when I did get married, I went in really, really clear that this was the right choice for me. And it took me until I was 35, and it took my wife until she was 38. So we both had a lot of experience. So there's another narrative to the, date one person, mate for life, like we're penguins. Um, and I just want to make sure that that complexity shows up in your work instead of this one-sided Indian marriage good, Western infinite choice and
No.
sex
So,
bad.
so I first of all, I actually do not say that the Indian marriage is the right answer either, right?
Okay.
These are two very different cultures with extremely different objectives, right? The Western connection between two humans is, prioritizes, let's say, romance, right? While the Indian connection prioritizes compatibility and gets a whole SWAT team to look at that issue of,
Sure.
of compatibility, right? In the way we date in the West, it's a lot more about convenience, right?
Hmm.
It's like, yeah, swiping is very easy. We can do that very quickly. It's a little bit like DoorDash,
Yes.
deliver me a date next week, right? There, it's a lot more about accuracy. So you're going to have to wait until we find the right match, and the right match is not only the two of you, but it's also a lot more than the two of you, right?
Right.
Accordingly, there is, a lot of expectations in the Western dating approach, and I live in the West, so I date like a Westerner. In the expectations list, we would have a person that is, incredibly in tune with my vision, but also has their own vision. We want a person that is, incredibly emotionally available, but also strong. We want a person, and so on and so on and so on, which sometimes are not realistic expectations, right? When, you know, uh, long-term committed relationships would have realism in setting expectations. But my most
Agreed.
important point about the two is that there is a systemic bias in our Western approach to love and relationships, while there is a systemic support in the opposite side, right? The opposite side is saying, if you're looking for a committed relationship, and by the way, that is the vision and the commitment of Emma, is that we're not this is not a dating app for hookups, right? As a matter of fact, we say upfront that if you're looking for, to have fun or to hook up or to have a short-term, fling here or there, or, no, we're basically saying we want to solve true love, right? And we want to solve true love. Most people think that this is something that women want more than men. That's absolutely not true. Everyone wants
Agreed.
true love. It's just that the cost of true love is seen differently, and the priority of true love is seen differently. And so, as an interesting, you said it, as an interesting midway, right? What we want to do is to achieve the theme of the Western true love relationship, which is not, hey, we chose the two of you, get together and make it work, the Indian approach, right? But using a more involved approach that is similar to the compatibility tests that a regular traditional marriage would go through, right?
Okay.
And I think the reason for that is, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I want to be able to jump in. I don't want to interrupt you in any way. I just want to
No,
make
no,
sure.
jump in anytime. Yeah, 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 jump in
So,
anytime. That makes it a lovely conversation.
no, it's okay. I'm going off script because this is fun and it's taking on its own life and own direction. So that brings up a larger question about the definition of compatibility. And
Correct.
I know from, again, being in the space, not an engineer, just tons and tons of anecdotal evidence, that I think a lot of people, right, have their own definition of compatibility, and it's very different than what I think compatibility is, right, from a guy who
Hmm.
helps other people presumably find compatible relationships. And I think that's my question is, if you ask a regular person about what compatibility is, you know what they'll tell you? They'll tell you
Hmm.
similarity, right? We both come from,
No,
I know, no, I know. But if you ask a
no.
regular person, they will talk about compatibility
Yeah.
as similarity. We both went to Ivy League
Hmm.
schools. We both like the great outdoors. We both vote Democrat, right? It's those kind of things. We come from similar backgrounds. We're both Catholic. So I, and then there's other people who say that it's our star signs that make us compatible, or I am an INFP and he's an INTJ, and there's lots of these things, but compatibility is
Yeah.
really about how the system flows, how two people get along. It's like building a corporate culture with different component parts that's greater than the sum of it. So, how do you build, at least what I think compatibility is, in a way that no one's ever really effectively done before, despite eHarmony's attempts and Match.com's Chemistry.com's attempts to do so?
Yeah. I think that's the best question ever. So the more information, so put it this way, there are two issues with compatibility that make it a very, very complex and a very large mathematical problem. One is, if you try to break compatibility down into categories, right? Of, what I want is A, B, C, what I am is X, Y, Z, how, compatible is A with X, and so on. First of all, it's a very limiting approach, because how many questions can you ask someone? And second is, it's actually not that straightforward, because, take the issue of feminine masculine polarity, right?
Right, perfect.
If you take someone that is very similar to you, you'll probably have no attraction whatsoever to them. If you take someone that's very opposite to you, but you can't make the communication work well, you're probably going to be frustrated by them all the time, right? And so the interesting set here is not only which point on that spectrum is compatibility, but also what other depths other pointers in your compatibility that compensate. So a couple that is extremely polar opposites in their femininity and masculinity, but that are incredible at communicating and collaborating would do very, very, very well. But a couple that are not that far, but horrible at communicating would kill each other, right?
Right.
And so it's quite an interesting, deep, basically it's a deep learning problem, which is the definition of artificial intelligence. So what Emma wants to do is to do it very, very differently than the eHarmonies and the Match.coms, because we don't actually ask you what do you think you're looking for. Okay, let's say that your first core to succeeding in a relationship is to know yourself, right? And so think of it this way. Emma will
That's going to
start
trip
by
people up
telling you,
too. I mean, right there,
but that's
asking people to sort of
100%.
sell, right? That diagnostic
Yeah. So
problem
so
is,
so here imagine the following. Imagine that you walk in and Emma says, "Hey, hi, I'm your love coach and dating coach, and I want to help you find true and genuine love. Answer a couple of questions like, what are you looking for? Like, you're male looking for female, you're male looking whatever, right? And very simple stuff. And then the next question is, okay, tell me about your love life, right? And that's it. It's as open as that, as
Mhm.
open as tell me about your love life. And because it's based on very deep language models, it starts to have conversations around you where it has a few objectives. One objective is to understand you deeply, right? But the other objective is to sometimes educate you a little bit. Like, oh, what you just said here is part of this person's research, which covers this type of compatibility or whatever. Have you heard of that? And if you say no, it would say, would you like me to tell you a little bit about it? So it highlights to you issues and topics that you may not be aware of. The point here is this: in our mind, in the background, we have this little bar that basically measures how much we know you. And how much we know you is an entertaining conversation around, as I said, some stories that you're telling. Why did you break up with that person? Why was that relationship wonderful? Why was it? You're just sharing what you feel. Okay. Eventually, you get to a point where we say, we think we know enough about you. This is what we know. Do you think this is true? Right? And if you don't think it's true, it's another wonderful conversation, because then the whole idea is we want to patiently not give you another picture to swipe on, not get you on another date. We want to get you to the point where you know what it is that you truly stand for, what it is that you truly feel comfortable with, what it is that you didn't feel comfortable with before, and to a point where you say, I didn't know that about me. The reason I recently broke up with my last relationship was that I was very good at long distance. She wasn't, right? And so things of that nature basically makes you understand a little more about everything that you're doing, until a point where we say, okay, we think we know you well enough. By the way, until then, we have not shown you a single profile to swipe on, right? Until then, we say, interesting. Do you know what? I found Jack, who lives 6 miles away from you, and I actually think you'll really like him. You know who does that? Very intelligent and intuitive friends, right? And Emma is supposed to be that very intelligent and intuitive friend who basically, through a lot of empathy and a ton of intelligence, like you're talking to Emma, but in the background, there are countless AIs looking at things from different angles to find out what's working, what's not, any contradictions in your views of things. Did you say that you loved this, but now you're saying you don't, and so on? And then basically Emma will say, hey, Jack seems to be a very interesting guy. This is what we think you're going to like about each other. This is what we know you're not going to like about each other. Would you like to be connected? Right? If you do say that you want to be connected, then Emma will pop up a couple of days later and say, hey, how's Jack? Uh, Literally like a good friend. You can say, "Oh, I love this and love that about him, but I'm really a little bit worried about this." And Emma will say, "Did you think about that?" Right? When it's date time, it will sort of prep you and say, "Hey, remember, you both like this, this, and that. Maybe those are nice conversation openers when you get together." The whole idea is that we give those swarm of AIs one objective, which is help them find true connection, right? Interesting things that would come in would be in the process afterwards, in terms of like, if you ghosted her, okay, and we ask her, how did it go with Evan? She will say, he ghosted me. And so we'll go to Evan and say, hey, by the way, a lot of the women we introduce you to seem to feel that you ghost them. Do you want to talk about that? Is that something that you have a reason for? And so on. Hopefully, of course, there will be less ghosting because there is better compatibility assessment from the beginning, right? And so this whole idea of a very, very, very deep level of Emma knowing you is really what makes the difference. You can feel a glimpse of that in language models when you're chatting to ChatGPT that gets to know you a little bit and then hopefully try to find ways to please you. Emma will really get to know you very deeply, but she won't try to please you. She will try to show you what it is that you really stand for, what it is that you really want, and accordingly, who is it that would fit within that framework that you are.
Can I thank you for that and giving us the inside look at how Emma is going to function, and it is very unique. I haven't heard anything like that. A lot of people, as you know, are rushing into this space. I've been
Yeah.
contacted by a whole bunch of people who want to make AIs out of me. And so
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm anything special. I'm saying, but a lot of people are heading towards this. I just want to ask a personal question outside of this, if you'd be willing to answer.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, what's your personal relationship with relationships? What's your personal relationship with love and marriage that makes this your passion project at this point in your life?
Quite interesting, that question. I think I went through four interesting phases. So, younger years, I was the ultimate geek. Okay. I was never the bad boy. And so, accordingly, I wasn't the guy that got the gorgeous girl. Right? Uh, then I did. When I was maybe 18, I met my college sweetheart. We fell madly in love. We dated for 7 years. Then we got married for 21. She's the mother of my children. She's still my best friend. We were just texting actually right before this podcast. And then unfortunately, when we lost Ali, as you can imagine, there is a very high rate of relationships ending when you lose a
Yeah.
child. So we did that lovingly and beautifully and in a very civil way. And as I said, we stay in touch and we're best friends. And that ended a very long, very, very deep and committed relationship that I have to say shows a man like me that there is so much more substance in deep love than there is in, there is absolutely nothing wrong, by the way, with experiences and getting to know and understand yourself and others through being with multiple relationships. But for me at that stage, I think that really built an admiration of what the elements of real love are.
Sure.
We broke up. I was in my early to mid 40s, and man, I dated like a 14-year-old. Both from a total lack of experience, especially in that new world I found myself in,
Right.
but also from, almost one woman man. So, at the time I was chief business officer of Google X, best-selling author, lots on offer, if you want. And so an openness to experiment and to learn about myself. And man, I learned so much. I mean, it's incredible, really. I have never had a woman. I had maybe a couple that I wish did not come into my life, but they didn't stay long. But I was always blessed with incredible gifts, even if we disagreed. Women that truly teach you something, show you something, make you feel something. And while I always, I entered any relationship with the intention of at least saying, I want to give this a shot. I'm not hooking up on, or I'm not, in a one night stand or whatever. Never had any of those. But, many of them were also for the purpose of, I'm not really sure. I don't even know what I want. And if I'm honest upfront to say, I'm really trying here, but I'm not sure. I felt it was positive for me and most of the time positive for them. Then I actually fell madly in love again and married again, which we broke up sadly only a month ago or so.
I'm sorry.
But again, for very clear, yeah, very beautiful reasons, honestly. I mean, we had a long distance marriage. So Hannah lived in London and I live in Dubai, which I have to say is a little simpler for me than it has been for her. It's been very stressful for her. I have 1 billion happy. I have Emma. I have my documentary. I have all of my work on AI. I write constantly. I speak publicly all the time. And so I have a very busy lifestyle of 200 days of travel a year, which simply, I think, was extremely stressful for her. And I take accountability for that. But I have to say, our presence, Hannah is one of the most intelligent people I know in the world. And so, um, having spent time together, we realized that we both have things to work on. And it's a beautiful conversation to have, to say, look, long distance is not allowing us to fuse in this, to really deeply find how we can work on it every day. And at the same time, we both recognized that there were things we needed to work on. And so, yeah, around a month ago, we decided maybe we should just give this a break, and who knows, right? Which is quite interesting because, of course, I told my co-founder about this around, when we were approaching it, saying, how can I talk about Emma when I've just failed my relationship? And he said, but isn't that exactly the purpose of Emma? And I think the real question, honestly, is, would I consider that a failed relationship? I mean, again, Hannah and I are very close. We text all the time. We help each other all the time. She actually was very influential in the design of the vision of the idea of Emma, in terms of, because she's a therapist and an incredible therapist at that, offering a lot of couple therapy as well. She was the one that basically said, love starts from within. So the idea of finding a committed relationship, true love, starts from you working on you before you go out and seek others, right? And the whole design of Emma, hoping to get you to know you before we recommend others to you, is mainly inspired by Hannah teaching me that.
That's it's a beautiful story, and it's a good narrative frame. I think that in a way, there's one part I very much agree with, and it's the coach part of me speaking, which is that there's a disconnect between most people and who they are and what they want. Um, and that's really hard to account for because most people either don't see it or don't want to admit that we're often the common denominator in our life. Most people think that the
Yeah.
biggest problem they have, Mo, is that they just haven't met the right person and that it's just a matter of introductions,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
if you just introduce
Yes.
me to the right person, everything will be fine. But you could hand them the right person, whether you are a matchmaker or a dating coach or an
You are
AI,
hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
right? And that's
This
why
truly is the challenge.
that's why I'm so passionate about the coaching part rather than the introductions part, because
100%.
people need to recognize where their patterns are getting in their own way. And sometimes what they're looking for, in my
100%.
experience, the anecdotal, not the scientific, most people are looking for the opposite sex version of themselves without their own flaws. Right? right?
So
That's what I
again, I
did.
mean, yeah. Let you and I fuse those two concepts. You know, you being the coach who really understands this, and that view is absolutely spot on, and me being the mathematician, right?
Sure.
You know, there are one of two ways that you can hit the jackpot, right? So if I tell you that let's start with a very simple example. If I say when you roll the dice, one of every six attempts will get you a six, right? Uh, this basically means that if you roll six times on average, sometimes you'll have to roll eight and sometimes you'll get a six after four attempts. But, on average, you'll get a six every six times, huh?
Sure.
But then uh, if there are two dice and you're looking for a double six, okay, the odds deteriorate very quickly,
Right.
right? So you go from, roll six times to not roll 12, but roll 36, and so on and
Right.
so on and so on, right? And so the problem is, um, if you are a person that's made up, let's simplify, of 100 attributes, okay, the odds of finding another person that matches perfectly the 100 attributes are not zero. Okay, that person exists. But the law of large numbers is what we call it in mathematics. Basically, would mean that you have to roll the dice somewhere around a trillion times.
Right.
It's or the luck, right? Or the luck to find that match of theirs. So in mathematics, we have something that's called the Markov series, basically, which allows you to skew that very low probability massively if you actually eliminate a lot of the 100 attributes from the choice, right?
Right.
So if I can come to you and say, look, and I did that exercise with a lot of my friends when we were designing Emma. I'd go to them and say, open your heart and write down everything you want in that dream partner. And often people will write something between 30 and 50 descriptions, right?
Hmm.
And I would sit with them and tell them, let me calculate the odds of finding that person. Because let's put it this way, if you're a man looking for a man, okay, and man, as let's just use
Sure.
simple numbers, is one of two, right? So by definition now, your odds are one in two. Okay. If you want that, a man to be, a certain age group, and that age group is one in five, your odds are not now one in seven, they are one in 10, two multiplied by five.
Right.
And
If
if
he
you
has
want
to be
that
six
man
feet
to
tall,
speak
right? 6 feet tall,
100%,
14%. Master's education, less than
100%.
10%. $200,000 a
There
year,
you go.
5%.
There you go. So the idea here is normally by the seventh attribute, seventh to tenth, okay, you're looking for one in a million to one in 10 million.
Right.
Okay. And that mathematically is almost impossible to do on dating apps, almost entirely impossible to do in real life. Right. So why do the Indian matchmakers succeed, though? That's a really interesting question. Because they limit things down to the attributes that matter, right? And limiting things down to the attributes that matter differ from one person to the other. They do it wrong because they do the attributes that the family cares about. But we can
Right.
use the same methodology to look for the right attributes that you truly and honestly care about. Okay?
Can I
And
share
and
a,
and
a thought?
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And again, I'm sorry. You're always on a roll, so
No, no, no.
never know.
I love when you jump in. I really love when you jump in, and
No,
I
well,
apologize because we have a tiny bit of a lag, so it's not easy to recognize when you want to come in.
it's okay. And again, I'm trying to be a better listener. I like to talk, so I really want to be a better listener. Um, so my observation, again, this is my anecdotal study, is that first list, what you said, 30 to 50, right? My clients make a list of about 20 things that I call that what I want, right? And that's usually the list of things that they're most attracted to that are the most like them. But then I ask them to make another list of why their previous relationships broke up. And you know what you discover
Yeah,
is that all the things on the first list have nothing to do with their actual compatibility. And the things
correct.
actually that have to do with their compatibility come down to five traits: character,
Yeah,
kindness, consistency, communication, commitment. Almost every problem
there you go.
in their previous relationship comes down to the measure of those things. I use that as
Correct.
compatibility. And then there was a New York Times article that I share pretty frequently. You could Google it. The 13 questions you should ask before you get married, right? Which
Yeah.
again, you may know about this, matchmakers may know about this, but these are also the things that determine whether couples make it. It is uh, introversion and extroversion, right? It is how we handle household chores, our philosophy of child rearing, our relationship to friends and family, right? How much we integrate friends and family into our lives. It's libido. One person likes sex once a month, one person likes it 3 times a week. So they talk about like
100%.
13 different things. It's not a million variables, but it's 13 things that actually determine whether couples stay together or break up. And so I love the idea that there is a path for AI compatibility. I just want to make sure it's trained on the right things rather than what everybody else looks for, which is similarity.
So it's definitely not similarity, right? So there similarity, or let's call them joint interests, are a way to lighten a relationship. Okay.
Yes.
But they're not a way to deepen a relationship. And again, when I was describing the difference between a Western approach and a traditional approach, if you want, the fun comes very much higher on our Western approach. Like, are we going to enjoy our time together? Right. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But uh, compatibility or consistency comes very high on a traditional approach. So,
Mhm.
we don't have to be both lovers of hiking. It's absolutely okay for one of us to go hike over the weekend, right? When the other is a carpenter and loves to do carpentry on the weekend, because that's
Right.
beautiful compatibility that comes from space, right?
Yes.
But then we have to question how are you going to be able to communicate space? Now, I need to highlight something because we haven't spoken about that, which is really important. Emma is not a dating app. So the target we give to the AIs is consistent, true love. Okay. And so our main objective, which is the biggest difference between what we're doing and, the Bumbles and the Hinges and all of those people, is that we want you to get to a committed relationship so that you stop dating. And then we want you to tell us, okay, so my partner is now Jackie, right? And we will say, would you like to add Jackie as your partner on the app? And once you do, we give you each a 50% discount. Now you're paying as one person. And the app handholds you through the rest of the dating relationship, hopefully through the rest of the committed relationship. The bigger chunk of Emma is all around, hey, by the way, you're going through a bit of a challenge here, and that challenge could be because of this compatibility issue. It could be because of that communication flaw. It could be because of this. It could be because of that. And basically we start to touch on the points beyond the basic 13 that make life worth living, if you want, together, right?
I'm so glad you shared that with me because obviously I couldn't have known that. It brings up an obvious question, which is one I'm sure you've considered. Um, while I believe in this because it's doing the kind of thing that a good friend, coach, therapist would do to hold your
Exactly.
hand and help guide you, is there a point, or does it not even matter? Is there a point where we've interwoven too much AI into our lives, where we're so dependent upon it that it doesn't exist as its own organic thing like when we were growing up? Are we creating an AI dependency when we do this, that we have to use it as our mediator throughout our relationship? Although I understand the concept and the business model, I wonder, is that the world we want to enter into?
So this is a beautiful question. This is probably the most important question. And, because our conversation today is about love and relationships, maybe most people don't know a core part of my work is about AI itself. And I've been warning against the downsides of AI since 2018. Since slightly earlier, but only when I managed to leave Google was I able to speak openly about AI. And at the time, there were very few of us, prominent AI figures that were talking about the challenges that AI comes with. Max Tegmark, maybe, myself, Nick Bostrom, a few, very few. Okay, and it's quite interesting that there is a big narrative that AI would work against humanity. Okay, this is the science fiction narrative, the narrative that the media wants to sell to you because they want to distract you from the actual narrative, which is AI will be used by bad actors in the short term to work against you. Okay, and there are many examples, unfortunately, uh, from the simple recommendation engine on social media that will not show you things that are healthy for you, but will show you things that are sticky, if you want, including showing you people that are not healthy for you, but are sticky. Right. And a lot of dating, by the way, happens from social media, not from just from dating apps. Huh? So again, when your mind is biased by what social media is showing you, your perception and understanding of your own self gets blurred to a point where your choices are not serving you, right? And so AI could work against you in that, all the way to the massive wave of AI girlfriends, AI boyfriends, AI generated porn, and the humanoid robots, which are getting to a point where it becomes actually quite creepy, I think is the right word. In a very interesting way, even if you just don't look at the agreeable is as compared to another human who may not agree with you all the time, we are reprogramming humanity in a way using AI that relationships are not worth the effort. Okay. Now, in societies like Japan, where you have, 40% of men are giving up on love. They call them herbivore men, where basically they don't even want to have love in their life. They don't want to have sex and so on. In societies like that, that could completely reframe humanity's relationship with each other. Now, what I'm trying to do is my message on AI is very, very clear. Uh, AI is intelligence is a force with no polarity. Okay. You apply it for good and it will give you a utopia. You apply it for evil and it will give you a dystopia. Unfortunately, there is more money in the short term in evil. Okay. Luckily, I don't need money because I've been, sort of blessed upfront, as my daughter always tells me. I was paid upfront, if you want. Right. And there is value in teaching AI to do good things for humanity. Okay. So Emma, for me, is hopefully solving one of the most complex problems of the West, which is finding genuine true love. Okay. But at the same time, it's teaching AI how humans love. It's teaching AI exactly what makes us human. Because believe it or not, among everything that we're capable of doing, from hurting each other to designing iPhones, love is what describes us as humans. And if I can teach AI what that is, okay, then in the future, when a general asks an AI to go and kill 1 million people, AI will understand because not I, but because the millions of people that spoke to Emma taught it how they crave that beautiful human connection. The AI will have a seed in its head that says, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not what humanity wants. Right. And yes, I am with you that we're going to be hyper dependent on AI. And is that good or bad? it's inevitable. Sadly, we're going to be might as dependent on AI for something good for us, right? Instead of, being dependent on them as a virtual girlfriend.
There was an Open for Debate podcast with Justin Garcia from the Kinsey Institute, and he was debating a woman who was pro AI, but pro AI relationships. And there was a really interesting framing, and I've had this conversation in real life as well with someone who's pro AI relationships, and I'm very anti for the reasons you talked about. It's not real, it's a validation machine. You don't have any friction of people trying to understand each other, get along. Um, but the the gut punch was when both people I talked to about this who were pro said, would you, for people like me who are really, really lonely, right? No, AI isn't as good as real life, but it's better than nothing. And that just broke my heart.
Correct. 100%, and it broke mine. And that's why we need to intervene, Evan. I mean, think about it. Okay. Why are we so lonely? You have to ask yourself. Okay. It's the same reason why dating apps don't want you to find love and go off the app. It's the same reason why even the wedding industry wants you to have two or three weddings in a life, not one, right? And in a very interesting way, what is happening is that we've affected the pandemic of loneliness, where now we're settling for, no, I'm not going to work on a genuine relationship. This shit is too complicated. Okay. Emma's trying to say, no, it's not. It is multi-layered. It is a matrix of complexity, but I can break it down for you so that you can actually see through it. Like a good friend, by the way, which growing up I had good friends that knew how to say, I actually don't know this bit, right? Not today, huh? Today everyone will say, girl, he's not respecting you. Oh, man, they're all trying to use you. What? Okay? You want a genuine friend that will tell you, look, all communication breakdown is likely going to be 50-50 or somewhere nearby. Do we want to talk about this? Do you want to acknowledge your role in this? And by the way, coming from an AI, people will accept it a lot more than if it is coming from a friend or coming from their father or coming from their partner, right? Most of us, even those who don't want a lifetime. By the way, true love doesn't have to be a lifetime. Huh? This is not the promise of Emma. It has to be fulfilling for as long as it lasts. So, do I consider that my ending my beautiful marriage with Nibel, my first wife, do I consider that failure? Absolutely not. It's the ultimate success. Do I consider, having found Hannah and fallen in love with Hannah a failure? Absolutely not. It's an eye-opening, enriching, enlightening experience, right? But the point is, relationships have to have a threshold below which you start to tell yourself, we've done what we can. We can do it amicably and move on. And we've benefited from this. But as long as we were together, we felt a genuine, true romantic love. And when we break up, by the way, we want to continue to embrace that love in a different format. One of my early testers sent me a request. We have something within Emma that we call expert modes. So things that not everyone needs, but some people need and some people don't. A simple example would be if you belong to a certain culture or a certain religion, and you want certain guidelines around dating and what you're looking for and so on. There is an expert mode that can help you do that. There is another expert mode that I absolutely love that's called Grace. Okay. And that tester texted me and said, Mo, I love AI. I love what Emma's doing, but me and my partner, I feel we've come to the end, and we've decided we want to break up, but we have two children between us. And I wonder if Emma can help me make this civil and supportive for the children. And so we developed grace so that even breakups, you can activate grace, and then grace would help you uh, uh, communicate in a way that highlights the topics that matter during a breakup, that reminds you of all of the wonderful things you've built together rather than the last few, arguments that you're, stuck around. Not to keep you together if you've decided to break up. Part of genuine true love is that when you break up, like, I believe this was the biggest blessing in my relationships always, is that it never ended with hating each other or saying that, if it became a relationship, if there was that depth of love, right, then it's absolutely worthy of preserving and honoring for as long as, as it morphs into those other forms of love.
I'm afraid to ask one more question, but I'm going to ask one more question, okay?
Ask anything you want.
Um, Usually when people come to me for help, the biggest question they have is there's a lot of fear when it comes to dating and relationships, because we can say in one breath, like you did, it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. This relationship was beautiful, even if it ended. This relationship was beautiful, even if it ended. But there's a lot of people who, having been burned by relationships, right, where they either drifted
Correct.
or he cheated or they were just incompatible for any number of reasons that they couldn't see in the first 6 months, they, and it can't be done, they want to know at the beginning whether there's a chance of compatibility. What they don't want to do is sink 2 years into a relationship with a guy who says, "Nope, never want to get married," and she does. So
Yeah.
she could genuinely love him, but if they have incompatible life goals or there's some structural things that are going to make the relationship ultimately impossible, she'd rather not even embark on that relationship. She doesn't see the beauty in that, and I could respect that.
So this probably in my mind, again, go back to mathematics because you described it beautifully. In my geek brain, it's always mathematics, right?
Sure.
The biggest challenge with the law of large numbers, is there is not enough time to try them all. Okay, and the biggest problem I believe with today's dating world, is that we linger in relationships that should have ended a long time ago. Okay, and it comes from a beautiful place, right? It comes from a beautiful place that basically, is all about, hey, you know what? There are so many things I love about this person. I've enjoyed them. We've been naked together, and so we might as well give it another try. Okay, and sometimes, people linger for the wrong reasons. Sometimes they linger because uh, breakups will trigger a certain trauma for them. They linger because, just the sex is too good to give up on or whatever. Okay, but the problem is, if, let's say, we've done the mathematics right, and, on average a person will need to see 10 people, go out on a date with 10 people to find the one that's compatible with them. uh, you know, the challenge is, if every one of those 10 people turned into a short relationship that's 6 months long, followed
Right.
by a 4 months painful breakup, followed by a recovery of 4 months, then this whole thing is taking you 12 years, right? It's
Mm.
actually so much better to break up as soon as you feel that this is not it. Okay. And even better to break up before you get too deep. I'll share with you a personal experience, which, is a bit funny in my mind. But so I'm very spiritual as a person, and even though I'm quite geeky and very in the corporate space and so on, I did a couple of attempts in my life to be a monk for a year, right? And one of them was around 2021, I think, when I was on Diary of the CEO, one of the largest podcasts in the world. And Stephen and I are really good friends, and so he, in 2/3 in on the podcast, he goes like, "So, how's your love life, Mo?" And my immediate answer was like, "Oh, no, no, I'm gonna become a monk for a year." Okay. And I had actually been around a couple of weeks into it and so on. Made a celibacy vow. It's very, 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 empowering spiritually. And so interestingly, as soon as I did that, that episode was watched like 11 million times or something. And so as soon as I said that, I started to get hundreds of messages, literally, on Instagram of women saying, "Would you go out on a date with me?" And I'm like, Hold on, I just actually announced I'm a monk." And it's quite interesting because, again, one of the things that a woman really needs in a relationship is safety. And today, the meat market of dating is unfortunately always targeting the body of the woman, if you want, or frequently targeting the body of the woman. And so they felt safe in a very interesting way. And in my approach to spirituality, I'm not that rigid in terms of I will go in a monastery and I will wake up at 4 a.m. and so on. So to a few of them, I said, I'd love to get to know you if you're willing to wait for me until I end my monkhood. Okay. And in a funny way, I'm sure a few of them were like, "Oh, wait until you see me." Right. But I actually committed to it. I said, "You know what? It's going to be June next year. So if you want to go on platonic dates, I'm happy to." Okay. And my God, man, almost always, many of them, by the way, are still very good friends, but almost always on the fourth date, I would go like, "She's absolutely not the right person for me." So clear, right? It's in the pressuring cycle of like second date kissing and third date, I don't know what you call it, third base or whatever. I don't know the
Sure.
Western term. Okay, yeah. That kind of pressure, believe it or not, gets us into relationships that linger, right? And it's so interesting that sometimes the best way to end the relationship is before it started. Saves you so much time. You've rolled the dice, okay? And so if you're rolling to get a six, you've moved one of the rolls, and now you have five to go, right? And most people don't understand that when you have five to go, your odds now are not 1 in 6. Your odds are 1 in 5, right? When you throw the dice again, when you roll the dice again and go on another date and say no, your odds become 1 in 4, and then 1 in 3, and then 1 in 2, and they improve all the time without wasting 6 months or a year in something that wasn't necessarily clearly a hell yes.
Um, there's a reason I didn't interrupt that time, and it's because you said all the things that I always say, and I just love that that's where we ended, is just the idea of being the CEO of your love life and bringing in interns and seeing who's a good fit for the job and saying, no, not a good fit, not a good fit, not a good fit, not a good fit, instead of that cycle of sleeping with someone, keeping your fingers crossed, trying to make it work, breaking up, taking the break, right? Your
Yeah,
methodology completely dovetails with my methodology, coming from completely different angles and life experiences. And I really love that.
yeah, believe it, the mathematics absolutely prove it. If I can show you the incredible algorithmic probability increase of finding true love, if you just continue to say no when it's not a hell yes, right? We call it internally, we call it the Rolls-Royce strategy, right? Which is quite interesting. I mean, I'll say it, even though we've spoken about it already, but if you walk into a Hyundai showroom, the first thing that the salesman will tell you is like, "Hi, do you like this one? Would you like a test drive?" Okay. If you walk into a Rolls-Royce showroom, they won't even open the door of the car for you until they know that you're qualified to buy one, right? And it's that's how dating should be. There's absolutely nothing wrong in going to the showroom a million times. A million is too much, but 5 times, 6 times. And of course, again, the pressure is different on the woman's side and on the man's side, because most of my women friends will say, "But then I'll scare him away. He won't wait for me." And I always say, if he won't wait for 6 months, for 6 dates, then he won't wait for 6 months, right? It's a very simple test to tell him, "Hey, by the way, I really like you, and I think when we're together in bed, it's going to be amazing, but I'm
Mhm.
not ready. Can you
Right.
can you help me be ready? Can you help me be ready?" Right? That's how a Rolls-Royce treats herself. A Rolls-Royce says, "I'm too precious for this." Right? And by the way, when I use this, men and women, it's not different. One of the biggest issues is that gender combat, if you want, that all men are like this and all women are like that. That's not true at all. We all have emotions, we all have feelings, we all feel objectified, we all feel insecure, we all feel, infatuated. It's all the same, just different approaches to it. And so we might as well tell ourselves, even if you're a man, by the way, and many of my dear friends have benefited from this advice, wait. You'll feel a very different thing when you actually, even if it's not going to turn into a lifetime relationship, you'll feel very different when you're connecting with a woman that actually means something to you, that you feel something about, right? We're in such a pressuring environment that people make rash decisions that take a very long time to correct.
Mo Gawdat, that was an amazing close, very, very validating and mind expanding. It's the kind of conversation that I could certainly do for hours, but I can't do for hours because it's late by you and I've got a call coming up. But where can people find you? Where can people find Emma? What should they do now?
So Emma.love is, a lot of people don't know that there is an extension called .love. So Emma.love is where you come join us. We're in what we call a technology preview now. So we're publishing Emma for 1,000 people in September. And we are going to publish or release Emma for, at least 3 cities in October. So far, it looks like New York, the UK and Dubai, London and Dubai, but we're going to expand very quickly afterwards. The idea is if you register your interest on Emma.love, even if it hasn't launched in your city yet, just register on the wait list, and as soon as Emma's up and running, you'll get your sign-on credentials right away, so you don't even have to do that again. And yeah, and there is a lovely referral product, program if you want to tell your friends about it. Once you sign up, you'll be informed about how to tell others. And the idea is, it's genuinely is an attempt to make a difference. And so I hope that people feel that. If people don't, if they find that anything is missing, I'm always available on social media. I answer every one of my messages myself. So most way, grateful that you gave me the chance to talk about this, Evan, and I hope it makes a difference for people.
One more time, because you cut out. Where can people find you on social? Because you froze for a second.
So social media, I'm everywhere, LinkedIn and YouTube and Instagram, but Instagram is where I answer all my messages. So Mo_Gawdat, Gawdat, on Instagram and send me a DM if you have comments or things that you want to improve, and we will work on them.
Mo Gawdat, what a really fun, fascinating, unscripted conversation. Thank you for being here on the Love You podcast. My name is Evan Markatz. This is the Love You podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe on YouTube or Spotify or Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us a comment or a kind review. We appreciate it. And if you have listened to this, I've never had someone on the podcast, by the way, whose mission statement is to put dating coaches out of business. But if you were inspired and want to talk to a human being before AI takes over, go to evanmarkatz.com/now, book a time to talk with me, and perhaps we can navigate your way to love before the robots take over. I appreciate you and I thank you, and I look forward to talking to you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.